we didn't have really that many role models that was telling us, hey, you can go further, you can do better. You know, there's opportunity for you if you're really, you know, you're really serious about it. You know, we all had that seed of potential that needed to be activated, right? That needed to be exposed so that we can be exposed to even greater things. But for me, there was one television show that did it for me, and it was a TV show that was called A Different World. Now, this particular show, it chronicled the lives of, or it actually followed several students that were in college, and it was a fictitious college called Hillman College. And I could relate to these group of students because they looked like me, right? This was my opportunity. I had never seen this before, so they actually, you know, they looked like me. And they all, what was so intriguing about them is that they all had a personal vision, right? So, you know, someone had a personal vision of being a lawyer or being a doctor or a political activist and really fighting for the causes that were most important to them. And then, of course, there was one who wanted to be an engineer. This was a guy who was actually a math whiz, but because he wasn't cute, I wasn't intrigued initially by that, right? But they all had a personal vision of being somebody better than what they were, right? Understanding that whatever circumstances that they grew up in, they didn't have to succumb to those circumstances, that they could actually rise above those things, right? That what they were born into didn't have to be their future. And it was at that moment something sparked in me, and I think it was just a connection with, you know, that seed of potential that was on the inside of me that says, you can do better. You know, there's opportunity there for you. There's things that you can do that maybe no one else in your family has done. You know, I was the first to go to college and finish, you know, out of my entire family on both sides. So that was the moment that I said, personal vision. So what's the one thing that you can change that can literally change everything? And that's your perception. That's your mindset, the way that you think. It's honestly being able to elevate your thinking and looking at the possibility of what can actually be. So this book, Own Your Life, it talks about ownership. It talks about, when I say own your life, I'm saying take control of your life. Don't live your life by default, but actually be the one to design it, right? You have this creative power that's in you. Why not be that individual that designs your next step? You know, what is your life gonna look like? What is your family gonna look like? Your career, your business, your health. What is it that you actually want in your life? Otherwise, if we refuse to take ownership, we refuse to be engaged, we refuse to be active, we refuse to be participants in our lives, then we're going to live in regret. We're going to live by someone else's standards, by what our mother thinks, our parents think that we should do with our lives, just what our friends, what everybody believes is good for us may not necessarily be, because we failed to, of course, design the life that we want. And so in order to do that, I've actually taken the time to break it down into 5 easy steps, right? So if you're talking about owning your life, first, you need to, of course, get a personal vision. Look at every area of your life. Understand what it is that you actually want. Next, you need to identify any barriers, any limitations, anything that's self-imposed or imposed by some other individual that you're allowing them to have influence and power over you. The next thing is to transform your thinking and elevate that thinking, and look at, you know, what is it that I actually have to do to transform myself from the inside out, right? And then, of course, too, you want to do a plan of attack. You know, what are the things that I should be doing? What are the goals? How do I actually reinvent myself? It's ultimately what this book is about, reinventing yourself, right? And then, of course, how do you share that message with other people? Because as a woman leader, you're called to be a teacher. You're called to share your journey and your message with others so that they too can have hope. You can bring light to them, right? So let's kind of just break that down, and as I just kind of go through each step, I'm going to open up the book and I'm going to read from it, but there's just so much content, so much practicality that I put in this book that you definitely have to get your own, and just, you know, just begin to just scan through and just look at some of the pieces and parts, because I've also put assessments in there. I put things in there that's going to make you, you know, just really think, right? And this book is about you. It's about, you know, your one opportunity to be selfish, because as women, a lot of times we're everything to everybody, and everybody else's priorities a lot of times trump ours, right? So this actually gives you that opportunity to say, no, I'm going to take time for myself. I'm going to make sure that I'm a more effective leader by not neglecting the fact that I need to be self-aware. I need to understand, where I may have some limitations, and then I need to work on improving those things, right? So we're talking about a vision, creating a personal vision for yourself. And the thing about a vision, it empowers a woman, right? A woman who has a vision is empowered because she has direction. It gives you direction. You're just not living willy-nilly, right? You've actually sat down and you've thought about, what is a dream life for me, right? And you look at it from every single aspect. You're going to look at it in terms of what personal success looks like to you. What does, a strong family life and a strong marriage look like to me? What does, my faith look like to me? What does, being healthy and having good relationships and having good community, as well as having a successful career or even having a profitable business? You've taken the time to look at those things, and it gives your life direction. I write in here, to have the life you desire, to go from good to great, requires fine-tuning in every area. You must commit to not leaving anything to chance. Look at your life for a moment and quickly jot down what and who lives in it. You must get comfortable being the expert in your life. That's a good word there, expert. Start thinking that way. But most of all, realize that you have complete control over your destiny. You must own your life. You will live an ordinary life by default if you never take the time to design what you really want. Instead, dream out loud. No one else's dream will ultimately work for you. You must choose to either live your life to the fullest the way you want, or live by someone else's view of what happiness should be for you. Personally, I want to live my life without trying to measure up to someone else's standards. So what does personal success look like to you? Like I said, spiritual, a strong spiritual life. What does those things look like to you? You must start your journey to personal leadership with a vision. The end comes to pass when you take the time to see it first. So it's taking that time to visualize and to sit and think about what the possibilities are. And the cool thing about a vision is you're sitting there and you're not worried about if I have the resources. Do I have enough money? How can I do this? Or how can I? You're not at the point where you're trying to develop the plan just yet, right? You're not worried about what you may lack, what you may not have. You're just taking the time to dream, taking the time to say, what if this could be, something, a possibility for me, okay? And then it leads you to the next thing, which is, as you're going through that process of establishing your vision and giving your life direction, there's always going to be obstacles that come up. A lot of times things are self-imposed. We have self-imposed limitations, the way that we think, the way that we see the world, right? And so with that, it's important for us to transform our thinking. I listened to a pastor. We used to go to this church in Houston, and our spiritual leader used to talk about the 8 laws that actually govern life. And he says, everything starts with your words that ultimately trigger to your thinking. Then it goes to, the decisions that you make. And then those decisions turn into actual actions, right? And then those actions turn into habits, things that we do constantly over and over. And it builds our character that ultimately leads to our destiny. So your thoughts are powerful. That is incredibly powerful. And I'm thinking, okay, so, what is it that we actually do to, tame our thoughts? So when you're on the journey to owning your dream life and achieving the highest level in personal leadership, don't get intimidated when roadblocks show up. That's just a given, they're gonna come. These roadblocks are merely obstacles, whether they're small or they're great, but they're all designed to hinder your progress. If there's this roadblock is there to stop the momentum. Like when you come to it, it's ultimately designed to cause you to hit a wall and not go any further. This will often lead to discouragement and no movement at all. But in every instance, it's important important to remain focused, right? When anything that you focus on is gonna, grow. Your goal is to continue moving forward and not allow barriers to stop you, to reduce your momentum or even deter your efforts from having the life that you ultimately want. For me, and in the book, I've actually written about the 15 common barriers that we as women and as women leaders face. And ultimately, there were 3 that really that just haunted me. It was fear, it was unbelief, or believing the words that other people had spoken over me. And it was also, I had gotten so used to, failing in so many things. I didn't feel like that was for me because I had failed, so many times. I often tell the story about, my career in corporate, right? Where, I go through high school, graduate valedictorian of my class, right? I go to college in engineering school. I graduate number 1 in the entire college of engineering. And then I go into the corporate sector. And I enter into the workplace in the oil and gas industry. And I enter into a facility where ultimately there's not much diversity. There's not many people that look like me. It's a male-dominated field, a white male-dominated field, right? And here's this little, this little black girl that's going into corporate America, not having a mentor, not really understanding, how is it that you navigate your life, navigate your career through corporate. And at the same time, I was just going through so many transitions, at home. So I graduate from college, and mind you, I didn't have a personal vision, so a lot of stuff happened that was totally unplanned, right? And I couldn't just, I couldn't just really transition through or go through all of those transitions just seamlessly, right? So graduate from college. Within a year, I get married. Within a few months, we have our first kid, and then I have this brand new job trying to learn all that stuff, and so it was just overwhelming. I was so overwhelmed. Literally, I went into like a depression, honestly, and I was trying to understand, the job and understand what are the things that I should be doing and what it is that I should be learning to be able to effectively execute, my job and my function and really play a big role to the team. But I failed miserably, right? And so for me, failure meant I failed miserably. So for me, where I would have saw it as, oh, I'm developing, as an engineer, that wasn't what it was perceived as in that realm, right? I had to be, at the top of the top, I had to be extremely excellent. So instead of it being, oh, this engineer is just learning, she's within, 3 or 4 years of her career, she's just inexperienced and she's developing, it turned to, no, she's just incompetent. I don't think that she really should, she really should be here. Ultimately to the point where, you're really not doing good in a job when you're at the bottom of the rank list and you're supposed to get raises like every single year, but you don't get one year, right? So okay, I must not really be doing, too well, right? And, I began to believe it was so it was so discouraging and it was so depressing for me. And then I had a fear of just really speaking up for myself, right? I felt like, okay, if I do my job, and I had supervisors that would say, oh, you're doing a great job, keep doing what you're doing. But that didn't really translate into success in terms of, more pay and all those other good things, right? But, I had a fear of really just speaking up for myself, right? I felt like if I was to really just vocalize what my struggles were, even though they knew what the struggles were, right? If I would vocalize those struggles, that somehow I would be, I would give away my power, not understanding by me, actually speaking up and vocalizing, that was really an opportunity for someone to say, let me help you, even though they saw me drowning, right? And it was an experience where, like I said, I was fearful. I began to believe, what they said about me, and then ultimately, things didn't change until one day I had an actual conversation with my human resource advisor, because I had extremely sick kids and wasn't a lot of support. We were in a city where we didn't have any family, so there was really no support. So if children got sick, it was on me because my husband, he had to go to work, every day, right? He couldn't miss a day, right? But I had to, of course, be the one to really pick that up. And it was, how they say often that the truth will set you free. And just that one conversation with her, it caused me to literally see my role, the role that I was playing in this whole scheme of things. It wasn't about me blaming this person and, oh, I didn't have a mentor, nobody's helping to develop me. Is, are you engaged enough? Are you raising your hand? Are you communicating well? You know, are you taking on that role as a personal leader to really navigate your career and own your career? And it was at that moment that I was like, okay, so now I understand. It's actually a game that, you know, if I want to play, I'm going to have to really, you know, really get in and really lean in and really engage in it, right? And I did that. And I'll tell you, Charlie, what happened as a result of that, right? So when you're just going through that, you know, that process of identifying, you know, your barriers, you have to do that, because otherwise you're just kind of, it's like you're not totally girding yourself up, because you're still having a lopsided vision of, okay, this is, you know, who I am. And a lot of times we just have things that we really need to dig deep in, right? Because I honestly say the reason why I wrote